Chris, man, happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. By the way, you have a great name, so I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we got like Chris squared going over here with this recording, right?
I know, right? I love it.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, man. I mean, Next Level Mind's obviously title of the show, and you definitely fit that definition.
Thank you.
I know we've been keeping up with each other for a few years now, like socially on LinkedIn and Instagram and stuff. But
Oh yeah,
yeah, it was nice to connect in person a few weeks ago and stuff too. So
most definitely. Yeah, I was honored to have you on my show, and excited to have that episode go live on your whole background, the success you've accomplished. So very excited for that, and it was good to connect in person.
yeah, yeah. And Next Level Minds listeners, if you guys like this show, personal development, entrepreneurship, all that, you'll definitely like Chris's show as well. I was fortunate to be one of the guests, but he's also had a laundry list of very successful entrepreneurs that he's recorded recently. So again, if you like this show, you'll definitely like his as well. And I'll drop that in the show notes of the episode.
Thank you.
Of course, man. But yeah, dude, I figured a good place to start, and I was actually thinking back at our conversation that we had like after we recorded your podcast of just a little bit more about you, and I feel like a good place to start would be not only just like how you grew up as a kid and all that, but like I would also love to get to like the Winthrop and kind of walking onto the team and all that, just because I think that really like encompasses the just brutal work ethic you have. So
Oh yeah.
first, let's go ahead and just start like growing up TKK, and then maybe if you want to shift a little bit to the Winthrop stuff, that'd be great.
Yeah, most definitely. So I moved to Charlotte in about 06, 07, so right before the crash. And I'm going to age myself, and I hate this, but when I moved here, I was like 11, 12 years old. And my parents had so much confidence in me because they knew I understood business at that age. And they asked me, they said, Chris, would you want to move to Charlotte or Nashville, Tennessee? And at that time, my mother's job was relocating her. And I said, give me a couple days, let me do some research. I did my research. I came back and I said, I want to move to Charlotte, North Carolina. And the reasons being is because banking, financial, the growth Charlotte's going to have due to the banking and the financial. It's in the middle of the East Coast. It's easy travel. It's on the Eastern time clock. And so we ended up coming to Charlotte, North Carolina. So came to Charlotte, North Carolina, and a lot of people, I tell people this now, and they're like, no, there's no way. But back then, I was a firecracker. And what I mean by that is like with my attitude, I was a firecracker. And I'm a complete 180, 360. I'm very, very calm. It takes a lot for me to get riled up. I'm very strategic in my thinking now. But back then, I was a firecracker. So I ended up jumping straight into sports right when I got in here. And I played all the sports you can think of: football, track, baseball, soccer, basketball, you name it. Wasn't good at basketball. Soccer was very long distance for me. So I really settled in on baseball, track, and football. And fast forward, I did some wrestling, which I really enjoyed. First year of doing that, I went like 26 and 5. I got disqualified 3 times for throwing someone too far over my head, and then I lost twice. Runner up state champ in the first year of ever doing it. And then fast forwarding to I went to 2 different type of high schools, and I would never have changed the way I went to those high schools. And what I mean by that is my first 2 years, I went to an all prep school. So it was all prep, very wealthy. Kids drove around in, Audis and new cars, and their mom and dad handed things to them. Then my last 2 years, I transferred schools to play sports. My last 2 years, when I transferred, it was complete opposite. I was the only white kid on the football team, or starting on the football team. I was basically a minority at the school, which I loved because I made such great friends there. But I saw a different aspect of life: is you have to work hard to
Mm.
get what you want, and you got to grind. And I would never have changed the ways I went to school because I really feel like that shaped me to who I am today because I was surrounded with lions. And some of those guys went to go play in the NFL. But they were straight lions, and you had to have that type of mentality, especially in that school. I remember walking in for my first day of that school, and the kid a kid started cussing the teacher out, and I just walked in and I was like, whoa. I'm in a whole different environment. This is like the Hunger Games. One day that we had 16 fights before 12 o'clock. They had to shut down our school, send us home. Like it was that wild. And so it really made my eyes open. So fast forward to the college days. One thing I like to do is take advantage of the opportunity that I see. So at that time, as a senior, you were able to get Fridays off if you toured a university.
Mm.
Well, the local university was Winthrop, was in Rock Hill. It was like 15 minutes from the school. So every Friday I would tour the university. And the reason why is because I would tour it for an hour, hour and a half in the morning. I'd have the rest of the day to do whatever I wanted to do. So eventually I became friends with people on campus. I was in high school. They were inviting me to college parties. Eventually, I then, after becoming friends with some of the what is it, for fraternity brothers, they said, "Hey, you run track. I should introduce you to a couple of the track guys." I said, "I will love that." So then I ended up connecting with a couple of the track guys, and I was like, "Hey, what are you guys doing this weekend? You want to run? You want to train?" They're like, "Let's do it." So I ended up going on the weekends while I was still in school training with them. Well, they were able to talk to the head coach and said, "Hey, we have a guy coming from Rock Hill. He's very quick, lots of potential." And I was able to walk on. So I started walking on, and my where I succeeded at was quick, out of the blocks, short distance. So 60 meters out of the blocks, boom, I'm good. And so when it comes to the actually getting on, I had to compete with the guys who were full rides, and they were only two full rides. Track, you really didn't get that many full rides. So you had two full rides and then some partial. And when it came to the competing with them, a lot of times out of the block, I was killing them. So the first 5 meters, boom, I was out, and I was gaining on them. And coach started seeing that, so she started, getting on those guys. Look, Chris is competing. Chris is competing. And fast forward. Meanwhile, as a student athlete, you're going to school, you're going to study hall, you're working out in the gym 4 hours a day, then you're going on the track, another couple hours a day. It's a lot. And that coach, rain, shine, snow, sleet, you name it, we're on that field. There's no if and or buts. We are on that field. So it was a lot. And then on top of that, I worked in the evenings. And so I came across an opportunity at our local amusement park called Carowinds, now owned by Cedar Fair. And I believe Cedar Fair just bought Six Flags. And so I worked there for quite a while throughout high school. Now I'm in college and I work there. And going around the amusement park, I realized, I was like, wow, Carowinds is lacking snow cones. And funny enough, snow cones are a very high profit margin because all it is sugar water and ice. That's it. And so I realized that. And so I said, okay, I'm going to pitch the whole board of Carowinds my snow cone idea. It was like walking into Shark Tank, but instead of 4 people, there was like 8 people. So it was like double. And then I walked in with a suit on, and I knew that was the biggest mistake. I should have walked in with a polo because I'm selling snow cones. It
Yeah.
wasn't anything big. And I pitched them the idea. Well, they ended up loving the idea. However, at that time, this is where I learned business very well. They kicked me aside and they did it themselves. And now they have snow codes in every 13 of their parks. I don't know if I'm sure they've opened them up in Six Flags if they bought Six Flags. I thought I saw something about that. But now they have snow cones in all of their parks. And so that was really my eye-opening business experience. But before I even approached that, I'm the type of person to jump all in.
Yeah.
So I sat down with my coach and I said, look, I called a meeting with her, and she called a meeting to give me a partial ride scholarship, but I called a meeting to let her know I'm dropping out. And
Mm.
I ended up dropping out to pursue the snow cone. That obviously didn't go well. So then I worked two jobs at that time. And then I got into real estate, and boom, I shot off in the brokerage industry.
Yeah, dude, I love all that, and I think like it encompasses like obviously number one, your work ethic. I think number two, being able to look for opportunities, which I know like we'll touch on throughout this podcast. And number three, I think kind of being able to perform with like a bit of a chip on your shoulder, if you will, because it's like,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
like I'm going on the track team. There's people much better than me, but I'm going to show them what's up. Same with the whole football thing of like you thought you were really good, then you went to that new school and you're like, I got to show them what's up. And then the snow cone thing of like the eight board members. So, two questions I want to ask you.
Yeah.
One, how can you go about kind of proving yourself if you're new to the game? Because there's a lot of people listen to this show that are maybe like earlier in their career, earlier in their business. What are some things that they can do to kind of prove to them, the people out there, like, hey, like I'm a hard worker, I can get it done when they're just getting started, you know?
I love that. At the end of the day, no one cares. No one cares about you, what you're doing, and what you really have to do is have your head down, in my opinion,
Mm,
and you got to work in silence. Just let your actions speak loud. For example, last Thursday, I won a Charlotte's Most Admired CEO in the financial industry. I'm very honored to win that. Very honored to win it in Charlotte, which is the second biggest financial district in the United States. However, my main focus and honestly, while I was sitting there, is can you guys should have just mailed me the award so I can get back to work.
yeah.
Like I want to work. And so, I think the best way to get your foot in the door is let your success speak for you quietly.
Mm,
People will notice, the universe will call it. You do manifest what you want into your life, into your business. You do 100%. I'm a firm believer of that. And I think it's very helpful to understand that when you are going through that journey, wanting to get into those certain rooms, wanting to create massive success or massive strides in your career, your goals is really put your head down. Don't look at the shiny objects and just get after it at the end of the day, because no one cares, no matter on what level you're on.
yeah, man, I love that too because it's I work with so many young people and they're like, oh, like I want to raise or I want to make more money, and then I'm like, hey, like what have you actually done for this organization that you're asking about? And I think you just obviously answered that question of like the actions are obviously going to speak louder than the words, you know. um
Most definitely. I think that's super important. And I think my number one advice I would give everyone is normally never give up. But I've changed that over the years, and as I evolved, is learn how to speak. That's super important.
yeah,
Analyze your industry, analyze your top players in your industry, and learn how to speak. Learn the lingo, understand it at a very high level. I think that is super important, and will get you
mm,
very, very far in life.
for sure. And I think we talked a little bit about this on your show. It's like people nowadays just don't know the communication aspect near as much as they
No.
should.
Oh, they
So
don't. It's unbelievable. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know proper communication and how to speak. I mean, think of you being in a courtroom. If you say one word, that one word can jeopardize
yeah,
you and what you are trying to portray and do. And that's how you should be very careful on how you analyze your words and what you say. At the end of the day, I think it's super important.
yeah, definitely. So you kind of alluded to this a little bit, but you had the snow cone opportunity, and then you got into the real estate world. I know you absolutely crushed it at Keller Williams from what you and I talked about a couple weeks ago. So I would love to hear a little bit more like how you broke in there, and then just kind of took the success and ran with it. Because I mean, what was it, 50 million in transaction volume or something
Little,
absurd
so
like that? Like,
yeah, about little over 40 million. I just say
yeah,
40. So 40 million in my first year of transactions.
yep,
And how did I do that? Well, I got my real estate license, and I remember I tried on the 31st of 2014 to go and sign up at Keller Williams, and no one was at the office. And the team lead at the time, Shelby, she left something at the office, so she happened to come back when I was there, and we talked for a little bit. The first no one decided to work, which is this dumb one thing. As you everyone gets to me, I love holidays, I love Christmas, but I'm not a fan of holidays. And I know that's kind of contradicting myself, but like holidays during the week I don't like. I don't like 4-day work weeks. I don't like 3-day work weeks. Like I like to work. So what I do when there's holidays during the week is I work on my systems within the company. Because I'm not going to bother families. So the first, no one works. Second, I get in the second, and I talked to Shelby and signed up officially with Keller Williams at that time. And then I knew I needed to outwork my competition. I knew I couldn't just sit around and do nothing. So what really helped me is I did over 75 open houses my first year. I had a strategy where if I'm doing an open house, I make sure the house is not more than 3 turns from the main entrance of the neighborhood.
Mm,
So if why would you want to do an open house at the very, very back of the neighborhood? You just don't want to. It
yes.
takes too long. It's no. So I broke it down as no more than 3 turns for an open house from the beginning of the neighborhood. And then you do I've out of over 100 and I would say 100 200 homes I've done open houses with in my whole career. Out of all of that, I will say I've never sold the house
Mm,
that I did an open house in. I always sold other houses to buyers. And so what I figured is, okay, I figured very quickly, I'm very rarely going to sell this house that I'm actually doing an open house in. So one, the house has to be very attractive. It has to look good, and it has to be in a very great price point. Then it has to be minimum 3 turns. And then you do an open house until that house sells.
mm,
So no matter what, there was days it would rain, I'd have no one show up. There was days that it would snow, I'd have no one show up. But I did the open house until the home sold. And I made sure it was a good price point. I made sure it was in a great location. And I did two different houses a day. So Saturday and Sunday, I would do 11 to 1 and then 2 to 4.
mm.
So 11 to 1, 2 to 4. And I would do that with two different type of open houses.
Yeah, and I like how you had like the system around it because I feel like everyone's just like, "Oh, open house, let's go," and you're like, "No, no, no!" Like it had to be 3 turns from the front, and you're gonna look at it until it sells. So I think that's super cool.
Most definitely. And I think that's super important, especially depending on what market you're in. And then from there, it comes down to marketing, making sure you're marketing on Zillow, making sure you're marketing throughout social media to bring those clients in. And then when you're there, you have to be the real estate expert. You have to know what's for sale in the neighborhood because
Mm,
you'll have those nosy sellers that, or excuse me, your nosy neighbors that want to come see their neighbor's home, and then they know that neighborhood better than you do. So you want to know what's for sale in the neighborhood and what has closed in the neighborhood, and then similar price points. If you're doing an open house for a $400,000 house, don't I mean it's great to know what the $1 million homes are going for, but there's a very, very, very large chance that your buyer who's buying a $400,000 house is not going to go buy $1 million house.
yeah,
So understand that whole market on what is selling in that $400,000 range. What neighborhoods are comparable to the neighborhood you're in? What are the disadvantages of those neighborhoods? What are the school districts? Knowing your
mm,
market very well. I'll tell you a quick story. I had a client at that time, a potential client call me and came through our lead system, and she was a mother of MLB player, and she was helping her son find a condo. And all I asked her was, I knew the condos like the back of my hand in Charlotte, so I asked her, how old is he? I asked her, what's he like to do during the evening times? And then what size does he want, a 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom? And just by her telling me that, I said, okay, there's 2 buildings that he's gonna want. It's gonna be the Avenue or the Trademark. I prefer the Trademark because it's in a better location. Avenue, your units are a little more funkier. Trademark is more, rectangle type of building. And I said, she's like, well, we actually found one. It's facing north. I said, oh, then it's the Trademark. She says, how do you know? I said, well, it has a balcony, right? And she said, yes. I said, well, the Avenue doesn't have balconies that face that way unless it's the penthouse, and there's nothing available in the penthouse. And she said, "Oh my gosh." I showed her it. They didn't buy it, but they bought one across the way in a mid-rise, totally different vibe than what he wanted, but bought one across the way in the mid-rise. But she loved working with me because I knew my market. And that's what you have to do no matter what industry you're in. If it's logistics, if it's car washes that we're in, if it's a private equity, if it's, credit, if it's debt, short-term rental, you name it. Know your industry like the back of your hand. Know what's going on. Know the
mm.
big players that are coming in. know what's happening so you can speak at a very, very high level.
Man, I love that. I was actually like, you took the words out of my mouth. I was gonna say like that transcends to all industries, to all crafts. And I mean, even on my side, like selling research, advisory, and consulting services, it's like I'll hop on with a new prospect and they're like, hey, so what are other clients focused on? And I'm like, well, without giving any names, boom, 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 boom. Like they want to know the market. They want to
Yep.
know exactly what's going on, but it's like you automatically kind of discredit yourself and put yourself in like a rookie bucket if you're like, well, I don't really know. Like, imagine how you would have looked if they were like, so, what do you think he'll like? And you're like, here's some options in like the Southland area he might like. And it's like, no, here's why.
Correct. 100%. 100%. So it's really knowing your market and
Yeah.
understanding. And that goes for any industry is understanding and knowing your market at a very, very high level.
Now, this kind of as a follow up to that, you talked about like systems and things like that. So, somebody wants to know their market. Is it like, okay, from 8 to 5, do the actual work, and then 5 to 7, study your industry? Like, kind of what's your system to start understanding your industry more and more at an efficient manner?
Yeah, no, that's great. I always say it's easier to call people during the evening than it is early morning. You
Yeah.
know, a lot of people want their cup of coffee. You know, they want to do their rituals in the morning, so it's a lot easier calling in the afternoon. I found that during the evening times and all the way up until like 8 o'clock in the evening, and then knowing what I do to even excel is I type in their area code, and if their area code's on the West Coast, boom, I'm calling you at
Mm,
not 8 to 12 midnight. I'm calling you because you're on the West Coast. I can talk to you, and so I figured that out quickly. But I think the really big thing is yes, time block super important. So I would always wake up. First thing I like to do is meditate, and then after that, market knowledge. What's going
nice.
on? What's new? What's happening? What's going off? What's popping? And then getting a great understanding on that market so I can speak on that at a very high level throughout the day. I like as everyone gets to know me and follow me on social media, I don't sleep much. I my mind is always going, and I love what I do. So I do have a lot of time with some market knowledge with reading. I think it's super important. I think Warren Buffett even says something like that in his documentary where he's reading 5 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
Because he's reading on companies, what they're doing, how they're performing, where they're going, acquisitions, you name it. So I think time block what you feel comfortable with, but I like to do it early in the morning.
Yeah, man, I like that a lot. That reminds me of like one of my first sales jobs out of school. They had like A time, which was basically like client meetings, prospecting, anything from a client perspective, and then B time, which was like market knowledge, learning what's going on. And you would always do that like before 9 a.m. or after. In that case, like 5 p.m. because we were calling corporations. No one's really answering much after like 5:30, 6 p.m. from a business perspective because we were just calling like the HQ line, right? But I was like, that helped me nowadays because I'm like, okay, I'm going to focus at this time block for these income producing activities and this time block for more of like the kind of the back end stuff of like, all right, let's learn more about podcasting or let's watch something on X, Y, and Z. So I like how you've kind of broken that down as well. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, most definitely.
All right. So diving into QC Capital, a couple things I want to talk about is thought this is a super cool story you told me of like driving that guy around and learning from him
Yeah.
and like, man, that's so cool. I've actually been thinking about that ever since you told me. So I would love if you could like take that little nugget and run with it so that the listeners know what the heck I'm talking about when I say driving someone around in a car.
Most definitely. So we have an internship program at QC, and what essentially and where this is all going back is that with the internship, it was shocking to me that a lot of these interns want 60, 70, $80,000 as a damn internship. And they have zero experience or sophomore, junior in college, and they think they know it all. It is remarkable. And what I tell these kids is that yes, I understand you have to trade some type of currency because you got to pay bills. I understand that. However, what you are not understanding is that you are gaining knowledge, and if you turn that knowledge in and take action with that knowledge, you can actually make more than what you want to request. And what I recommend to everybody, and what I have done earlier to jumpstart my career, is there's a local operator, or he lived an hour and a half away, and I said, look, wherever you want to go, I will be your private chauffeur. I had a Cadillac Escalade. So, he liked that. It looked good. And, when when I would drive him around. So I'd drive him around in this Cadillac Escalade. I'd drive down to Columbia. I would chauffeur him wherever. I drove him out to Atlanta. My only stipulations was I can go to the meetings that you're going to. I won't say a word. I can listen to you and ask questions. And he said, okay. And so that's what I did. I drove him around everywhere as his private chauffeur. And the reason why is because I wanted to gain the knowledge. I wanted to hear how was he speaking? What was he saying? How is he wording his sentences? What is his strategies? And that is what really helped me jumpstart my career in such a short period of time.
Yeah, man. And I think a couple of things like stuck out to me. Number one is like that you were just willing to do the work for just the knowledge and kind of getting past that aspect of like, oh, I deserve this much, I deserve this much. Like, no, you don't. You're very early on in the game. And then I also think from this guy's perspective, it's like he probably saw that differentiator of like, okay, this guy really wants to learn if he's willing to like drive me around, drive an hour and a half and keep driving me around to all these meetings. So I really like that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's super important to understand that, I'm not trading my time for currency. I'm trading it for
For
knowledge.
knowledge. Yeah.
And I gave that knowledge and took it to action, which a lot of people don't do, but that's what people should do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so how did you find this individual? Because that's a question I always get of like, how do I find somebody that I can learn from?
Yeah, I think really searching LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a
Yeah.
powerful tool. Searching LinkedIn first. Okay, where are you located geographically? What is your type of interest? What do you do?
Mm.
You can start off with mutual connections. That's the best thing because you can name drop. But if you don't have any mutual connections, make sure that box is not checked. But start on LinkedIn. Find out who's in your industry, what do they do, and see whatever you can add value. I get questions so many times, hey, Chris, I'm an intern, or hey, I'm graduating and I'd like to get in finance. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can I buy you lunch? Can I buy you dinner? Can I, just take 5 minutes of your time? Those are the wrong questions to ask. I had a gentleman today. There's a call that I had earlier this morning. He initially came through my Instagram and asked if he could buy me coffee and take me out for coffee. And I said, no, I can do a 15-minute call with you. And I vet them now. I vet the calls through LinkedIn, through my research before I'll have a call with you. But I think it's super important to understand your time and understand where to use it wisely. Be okay and be comfortable with saying no. You have to. You have to be okay and be comfortable with saying no. And so there's a lot of times that I say no, but when you are a young adult, young, successful, going to be successful entrepreneur, don't ask, "Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee?" I don't need you to pay
Yeah.
$7 for my time. I'm on my eighth cup of coffee. How's your coffee going to be more special than my eight already cups?
Right.
So don't say that. The best thing to do is look at their social media, understand what they do, see what you can do to provide a service to them at no cost. Don't sell them a service. Provide them a service at no cost. If that means you're going to chauffeur them around, if that means you're going to work for them and do some sort of task, if you see that they're hiring, cool, hey, I'll work for you for free, period. You have to struggle throughout your journey, and if you don't want to struggle, I'm sorry, you're not going to be successful, because that's not the way the universe works. The universe will make you struggle to get to where you want to be. The farther you want and the more success you want, the harder it's going to be. The
Mm.
longer the journey, the harder the journey will be, the more pressure, the more stress you're going to have on that journey to reach your goals. Depending on how high your goals are, you're going to have a very struggling journey, and you need to be able to embrace it, accept it, or you'll break. And hey, those goals are not for you. But I do heavily believe in the universe, and that the universe repays you in that sort of aspect.
Dude, no doubt, man. And I think having that mentality of like it's gonna be hard, there's gonna be struggles, there's gonna be setbacks, kind of knowing that going in a bit makes it, and I'm using this word lightly, like fairly easier to digest because you're like, okay, this is part of the process, part of the process,
Yep.
versus going in like most people do now of like, it's going to be so easy. I can just get rich overnight. It's like, dude, no,
No.
like you're going to go through hell and back to have a chance at making it.
100%. And study patience. Patience is super important. And God will guide you in certain ways that you may not look.
Yeah.
And when you look at those ways, and what I mean is when you look at when you look back and you're like, why am I going through this? That's the wrong
Mm,
answer. It's what am I needing to be taught?
yeah.
There's certain circumstances I'm going through in on the personal front, and I saw that. I questioned myself. I'm like, why am I going through this? Like, God, the universe, why am I going through this? And then I said, oh, because you're trying to teach me patience. That's what it
Yeah.
is. I said, oh, when I figured it out, I was like, oh, I got you. All right, I got you. Now I understand you're trying to teach me patience. And so you have to embrace it in that aspect of it and do the studying. I've studied all the top billionaires out there. Do the studying. They've all gained success in that 10 year. At that 10-year mark, it's a special number, but they've all gained success. They stayed consistent, they had patience, and they all gained that really huge jump, that success in that 10-year mark.
I love that, man. I want to start this too. QC Capital. I think you told me you started at what, like 23, 24 years old, right?
That 20 wow, yeah, I was 23. Yeah, just turned 24. Yeah, you're right. Wow, time
Yeah.
flies.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously not asking that to age yourself or anything, but I'm asking that in the lens of how did you kind of get past that mentality of like, oh, I'm young, I can't do this, like, or did that just come from like the whole like I'm gonna soak up as much information, you know?
I love that. So I even had that, or when I was a residential broker and I'd go to list $1 million house, they would be like, "You're 21, 20 years old, really?" They would look at me and be like, "You're 20 years old, you're 19." And so how do you overcome that? One, you need to overcome that in yourself, and not have that setback in yourself. But two, how do you really overcome it? And I'll tell you this: I coached an 18-year-old, or he was 17 at the time, and then he turned 18. I coached him. Now he runs his successful company. Him and I still stay in contact. We have cigars together. He runs a very successful company, and he will clear. I think he's like 23 or 24 now, or maybe 25. But he will clear over 200 million in annual sales with his company as a
Wow.
brokerage. And I remember coaching him, and I said the same thing to him that I'm going to tell everyone here. Learn how to speak. If you know how to speak at a very high level, if you know how to word your sentences properly, no one's going to even say, "Oh, well, you're young," and then have that doubt in their head. What they're going to do is they're going to be like, "How old are you?" And then you'll tell
Mm.
them, and they'll be like, "Wow, you are very sophisticated. You're an old soul. You're very mature." And so you have to have that ability to speak at a very high level. Make sure you're placing the words in certain sentences properly, and you're going to flip the script. It's not going to be like, "Oh, how old are you?" and they're automatically going to have doubt in doing business with you. It's going to be like, "Oh, how old are you?" and they're going to be excited and want to do business with you because of your sophistication.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, that brings up another point too. It's like, look at the average like 25-year-old nowadays. It's like you roll to South in Charlotte, they're going to, trivia on Tuesday, bingo on Wednesday, you know, tipsy Tuesday on Thursday, you name it, and then messing around, getting hammered the whole weekend. And like you can easily differentiate yourself at this age by doing like the complete opposite of that, like you probably did to get to
Mhm.
where you are at still a relatively young age. So I don't know if you agree with that comment, but I mean that's just I was in South End the other day catching up with a buddy, and it was like a Tuesday, and I was on like a business thing, and I'm like looking around, I'm like, it's like 4:30. What are all these people doing? Like slugging like 3 or 4 beers on a Tuesday? Like, don't you have work to do and dreams to build and all? It's crazy, you know?
So I have a hedge fund that invests with us, and him and I go back and forth all the time. But he sent me something, and this was late at night, and what he sent me was a picture of a bunch of people in Austin, Texas, laying out during the middle of the day, and he said that this hedge fund manager hired some employee, or told some of their employees to go and find out what all companies they worked for, and majority of the companies was it was really like a two, and surprisingly that they all worked for. And he went and shorted their stock over a certain period of time and actually was up like over 400% because he figured that the companies are going to lay them off because they're not doing anything. They're just laying down, laying during the middle of the day. They're not even working. So the sales of that company will have to plummet at some point. And he made it big. And at the end of the day, it's wild to really think this generation and how they operate mentally.
Yeah, dude, I think I saw that on Instagram like a month ago about that.
Yeah.
It was like the picture of all the people laying out
Yep.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So all right, we talked about how to kind of get past that whole young stage and obviously the communication aspect of it is a big part of it. Obviously, work ethic is another large component. When it comes to gaining trust with your clients, and I know you work with clients day in and day out, probably were on a phone call right before we hopped on this, right?
I
So,
was. That's why I
how,
was late.
yeah, hey, better late than never. And you're only what, 5 minutes, so not a big deal. But how did you go about gaining trust again at that early age? Piggybacking off that other question a little bit too.
It goes back to market knowledge, knowing your market
Yeah.
knowledge and how to speak. I mean, I love your name because I can't forget it. Chris, you know, when you speak to someone and you don't hear the confidence in themselves, or if they don't even have confidence in their product that they have or the product knowledge, you can hear the doubt. And when you hear the doubt, it makes you cause doubt. And so the biggest thing is to make sure you speak very confidently. You take out your ums. You really speak very confidently. Understand your sentences. Understand word placements. And when you do that at a very high level, and then you tack on market knowledge, and then your tone of voice on how you change your tone of voice, you're going to be able to build that trust and rapport over time. Now, knock on wood. Hopefully, you'll have me on later in this year, and I'll tell you some of our successes that we've had
Mm.
this week. I don't want to say anything just yet, but we can talk on the next episode. But it all comes from having that market knowledge, that tone of voice to build that trust in those relationships, and then after that, you have to execute. Once you have those investors or those clients in, you have to execute. If you don't execute, it all goes away. And there's a lot of issues going on in the market environment right now that are out of everyone's control. However, what you can control, make sure you control it at a very high level because that's what's going to build that trust even stronger amongst your clients. And that's how it's going to grow even larger.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I like that you just pointed right back to the market knowledge and especially the communication aspect. And what's unique about those two things is like both of them you can control. You can control the market knowledge that you want to learn. And over time, maybe you're not the best speaker or communicator at this moment, but there's books, there's podcasts, there's YouTube videos, there's coaches. Hell, you can practice with yourself of just let's say you're talking to a potential client, record
Yep.
yourself speaking, go back and watch it just like you would record yourself like swinging a golf club or working out, same type of thing and perfecting that
100%.
craft.
We all have the same 24 hours in the day. So I don't want to hear
Yep.
anyone that says or complains or acts like a victim that they don't have enough time in the day to do what they want to do. We all have the same 24 hours in the day. So it's going to come up to you to being able to operate those 24 hours and being most efficient with those 24 hours because I think it's super important. With today's society, I will say I treat business like the Hunger Games. And we talked about this before we went live. I am a heat-seeking missile. I do not need sleep. I can operate. I've done this before. I can operate on 36 hours with no sleep whatsoever and still operate at a very high level. I've done it before. Do I choose to do that? No, I don't choose to do that. I choose to have my 5 to 6 hours of sleep a night. But I know I can do that. And I know how to operate with my mindset that way. So creating that David Goggins, which if you don't know him, research him. He's a phenomenal individual, from a phenomenal motivational speaker, and a great story that he has. However, get that type of mindset. You can build that type of mindset. It comes down to you in learning how to say no to stuff that is going to soak up your time. And if you think right now where you are at in life, a lot of people want your time. Wait till you become a little more successful.
Yeah.
Wait till you have a little more money. You're going to even have more individuals that are going to want to soak your time up. And you have to say no. The girl who I'm dating right now, I say no to her a lot. I say no to her a lot. She understands my three pillars in life. It's business, my son, health, her. She's fourth. And she understands that. And that's just my life. And that's my life so I can operate at a very high level. And thankfully, I take care of her, she takes care of me. She's happy with it. And also what I like is that she understands it because her father and her grandfather run very large hedge funds. So she comes from that family already, that type of work ethic, which is very helpful. But it's super important to create that mindset, learn how to say no, and learn how to time block and use your time wisely.
Yeah, man. And To that point too, I think it's whether you're in a relationship with somebody or just a friendship, I think it's kind of setting those parameters of like, hey, this is how I run my life, and feel free to come with me, but
Yep.
not like not faulting to those, not being like, well, I'm gonna maybe drop this because this person. It's like, no, you stick to those pillars, whatever they are for your life.
Stay consistent, and
Yeah,
look, if you are looking to lose weight, if you're looking to get fit in the gym, you are not going to go to the gym for an hour, come home, take a shower, look in the mirror and say, wow, I have a 12 pack, I'm ripped, I can, I look good, I feel good, and so it takes time, it takes consistency every single day. Even if you're walking a mile in your neighborhood, do some sort of activity, some sort of workout, and it's going to take you 2, 3, 4 years to look the way you truly want to look. And that's the same thing in business. That's the same thing with your mindset. It takes time, and you have to stay consistent with it.
for sure, man. So, the last thing I want to ask you about the QC Capital stuff is, I know obviously you guys used to be heavily involved in the multifamily space. Obviously, you guys shifted a bit to the car washes. So, would love to hear kind of number one, how to recognize when you should shift in your business, and then maybe a couple things that you can publicly share
Hmm?
to some of the listeners that y'all are working on right now.
Yeah, most definitely. This is great. In 2022, I really sat down with the team and I said, "There's no way that the market's going to be able to do $300 to $500 rent bumps. Like that is crazy." I remember looking at deals and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to get 650." And I'm like, "What?" Like, there's just no way. Like that can't be sustain. You can't keep that long term. You can't keep that consistent. Something's going to bust. And so sold off about 200 million worth of real estate in 2022, give or take. And I said, okay, something's gonna hit big. And I called it early January. We had an office space. We were paying like 6,000 a month for office space. I called them and I negotiated into my lease like a 90-day carve out. I can give them 90-day notice and I'm done. So I gave them 90-day notice. I'm like, I'm done. Everyone, we're going remote. Because I saw where the market was going. So I was like, okay, I need to cut down certain expenses. We're going remote. We do that very successfully now through Google Meets and everything. Our team loves it. They're traveling and they're working even harder, which is great. But I noticed that, and then so I said from there, I said, okay, our investors want cash flow and they want tax benefits. How do we give them cash flow and tax benefits? I looked at every single asset class, and it's very difficult to pivot. I've realized through multiple business ventures I've done, and some successful, some not successful, is that it takes about a year to really get in the market, get engaged. It takes about a year to really, start going into it. And it took us about a year, little over a year, I would say about a year and a couple months, to really dive deep into it. But it was through thorough research on all asset classes, and it even broke down, saturation of private equity versus, mom and pops, all of that, numbers of how many, where are they going, where's the growth in the industry, and I landed on the car wash sector. Car wash sector is very, very large. It's growing substantially. Everyone has a car. A lot more people have older cars, so they're taking care of their car because your average car payment's $1,000 a month, which is wild.
Wow.
So yeah, it's like 950 to $1,000 a month. My insurance on my car doubled, and I called my guy up. I said, literally, it doubled. Why? Labor's expensive, parts are expensive, inflation. I said, this is crazy. Like I haven't had a ticket for my whole life, and it just doubled. And I was like, this is wild. So so that right there, people are going to take care of their cars, and it's 80% mom and pop, and but we can offer the two major pillars to our investors: high cash flow, high tax benefits, and we own the real estate. So we have that safety net of owning the underlying real estate. And so it poised a very strong opportunity, which I saw in the market. Well, come to find out, I know this is airing in July, but come to find out, back in early June, KKR, the conglomerate, placed 850 million in a minority stake in a car wash company out west.
Hmm.
So private equity is now getting a hold of it, and they're saying, "Holy cow, these things cash flow and they have great tax benefits. We want in." So we're seeing that more and more.
Yeah, man. I like when I started to see you pivot and then you started to share like all these articles about it. And then I saw the one about the 850 million. I was like, holy crap, like this thing is just continuing to pop off even
Oh, it's
more.
coming. Oh yeah.
And just looking at like when you sent me some of the things in y'all's OM, just looking at some of like the numbers of these car displays, crazy. And I think that's so cool that you guys just pivoted at such a unique time too. And you recognized when to pivot. I feel like a lot of people kind of ride a high horse when their business is just doing extremely well and they're like, this is gonna go on forever. It's like, well, there's market shifts all the time and you got to recognize those, you know?
100%. And I've noticed this too is I've had some young teammates and or you know come I call them teammates because all of the individuals we hire are athletes or previous athletes.
Mm,
I will not hire someone who does not have a collegiate level athletic background. That's one of our things at QC Capital is you have to have a college level sports collegiate level, you know, anything in sports. And that's one thing that I've noticed is especially with the younger generation, once they make a good amount of money, they relax, they set
mm.
back. For me, I have the Kobe mindset. If you guys follow Kobe, if not, follow him. Great motivational stuff he's posted. I have that Kobe mindset. I have the Michael Jordan mindset, the David Goggins mindset. And you need to have that as a leader. You need to have that in business as well. And I think a lot of leaders got comfortable with 2022
Yeah.
not thinking the crazy market's going to spike like it did and then now they're stuck and honestly Chris I've we have a couple job positions open. I've had some people that applied for those job positions who I know used to own their own company
Wow.
and they had to let go of everybody and now they're looking to work, you know, within other companies because they did not pivot at the right time and they wanted to stay in the multifamily space.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, don't get tied in with the emotional component of it, you know, you have to
You
obviously
can't.
run the numbers and yeah.
Business is no emotions. Hunger
Right.
game is no emotions. Once you tie emotions into business, you're done.
Yeah.
You lost.
Man, I love that you mentioned, like, the Kobe mindset, Goggins, Michael Jordan, all that, 'cause, actually, yeah, you saw this photo. When I went and toured, like, the first Horn facility and ran into Andy, I was like, "Man, this is awesome, love what you built," and he literally was like, "Yeah, we're just getting started," and, like, fist bumped me and walked away, and we're like, "Wait, you're just getting started, and he's built this massive organization?" But, like, that's the mindset that you have to have in business of, like, "Hey,
100%.
we're just getting started. There's way more to accomplish if you have a big mission," like, sounds like you do and many other successful companies do.
Yeah, most definitely. And you got to think, you know, the time difference. I mean, East Coast when it's 12 o'clock, what is it, 7 o'clock, or you know
Yeah.
whatever it is over on the West Coast, you know, it's still daylight.
Yeah.
So, you know, 3 in the morning or, you know, 4 in the morning here, it's 11, 12 there. So, you know, I have that type of mentality where I really sleep between 1 and 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I'm up at 6 a.m.,
Yeah.
you
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah, I love that, and that's obviously what it's gonna take to get
100%,
behind the large mission that you guys are trying to accomplish right now, especially with a big pivot going on, so
100%. Yep.
Man, I wanna leave you with this as we're starting to close up here. You obviously touched on a lot of great advice for people of all different ages and, circumstances, but, if you could go back to, you know, 21, 22-year-old Chris, is there anything that maybe you would change or do differently that you can leave as a suggestion for any of the listeners out there?
100%. Learn how to raise capital, especially in your
Mm,
if you're in the private equity space. Master the art of raising capital. If you cannot master the art of raising capital, and that's actually a good book. I'm going to write that. Thanks, Chris. I'm going to write
yeah.
that. Master the art of raising capital. I think it's super important to do that, and that right there will be able to grow a large business. Everyone needs capital in good and bad times, no matter what. Good and bad times, everyone still needs capital. So if you can master the art of raising capital, you're going to be a very, very successful individual.
Yeah, and I imagine one of the ways to master that is going back to the whole communication approach that we touched on about 20 minutes ago is one small component of it. So,
100%. 100%. Yep. Being
where
transparent, our investors know I'm very transparent, very blunt. Being transparent, very blunt, building long-term relationships helps tremendously.
where can people connect with you?
I would say go directly to Instagram. That's the best way. It's Chris_Salerno_. We post everything on there. We're getting our new podcast up and running, which I was super excited to have Chris on, and we're having our YouTube channel up and running. But everything is updated through our Instagram, and that is the same handler throughout Threads, Twitter, you name it, TikTok. It's Chris_Salerno. But go ahead and follow me on Instagram. You're going to be able to see everything on there. If you are interested in any of our car wash opportunities, please visit our website, qccapitalgroup.com. We'll have all of our car wash information on there where you can gain knowledge about it. We have articles, blogs, you name it, and you can set up a call with me personally or someone from the team where we can talk through, see if we're a good fit for each other.
Right on, brother. So when's the podcast coming out?
I anticipate the podcast probably to come out end of July or early August of 2024. We're building up all of the content and we're just going to saturate all social media, Twitter, Threads, TikTok, you name it, Instagram, YouTube. We're going to saturate it all at once. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, hey, man, thanks again for hopping on the show. I love the conversation.
Most definitely. Let's stay in touch, my friend.